Okay, good morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. This morning, I'm very pleased to have with me as my guest Eric Wall, who's the executive vice president at a company called Silo, also a former lawyer and partner at Quinn Emanuel. Eric, welcome to the program.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Eric, why don't you start by telling me, why you went to law school in the first place?
Yeah, I didn't have any lawyers in the family, so I was doing my best to sort of, I guess, imagine what being a lawyer was. And when I was 14 years old, that was like 91, and as you may recall, that was the height of like the Japanese bubble. It was maybe a little before that,
Yeah.
and I got it in my head that I was going to like work with Japanese business partners and become a corporate lawyer.
Huh.
And I actually ended up studying Japanese. I ended up studying in Japan somewhat, but that really didn't take. But the law part did, though not in the corporate sphere. So I've always been, had a facility with language and with argumentation. And that's really, I think, what drove me to law school, as well as problem solving. I'm a crossword puzzle slash chess guy. So
Oh,
I
okay.
love that aspect of it. And that's why I think ultimately really drove me to law school.
Yeah. So when you graduated from law school, did you become a litigator or a transactional lawyer? What did you do then?
Yeah, I was a litigator, and I gravitated towards patent litigation because it was that was 2002, and there was a lot of it going on. And at the firm I started at, Clifford Chance, there was really a lot of opportunity to develop your litigation skills as opposed to doing very boring document review, which I wanted to avoid like the plague. So I ended up going into patent litigation.
Right. And how did you did that for a while. Did you like it? What did you think about it?
Uh, I really did enjoy patent litigation. So I was a litigator with a focus on patent litigation for 12 years.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I enjoyed it because of all the two components of it. One, it's just a really rich area of law that isn't very old and therefore is growing all the time, and the technology pushes it in all sorts of interesting directions. And two, it's just the technology itself. I got to work and speak with Nobel Prize winners and incredible research scientists and basically the position they were in was to explain to me the really complicated things did in a way that I could explain it to decision makers, be they judges or juries. And that was fascinating.
What was kind of the most complex or exciting big patent litigation case you worked on that you recall?
I mean, to me, it really was the variety. Honestly, I worked on some of the early cell expression cases, getting cells to express proteins that were not in that were from other species. That was really interesting. I worked on some gaming cases, slot
Hmm.
machines, and there were all sorts of iterations of that. I worked on some software cases for securing, various less cybersecurity and more like data storage software. And so it was really, and then I worked on a lot of wireless stuff and some of uh, the patents that were in the standard setting organizations and that had all sorts of restrictions on them. So I think the interesting thing about patent law is you just dive into whatever kind of technology that you're dealing with at a particular time.
Yeah. Well, you were a partner at a major law firm like Quinn Emanuel doing successful patent litigation. What on earth made you decide to leave that and start your own company?
Yeah, it's kind of a simple answer. I mean, I found myself with two very young children, and I could not figure out a way to square the circle of being the dad I wanted to be
Hmm.
and continuing to be a partner. And luckily, I had a very supportive wife who wanted to see more of me and was less worried about like how we would figure out making a living.
Yeah.
And sort of I was going on a run one day, just trying to think of kind of how to get out of my current situation and do something new. I had this idea. I had a partner or friend who had her own personal assistant. And I'm like, man, I bet a lot of these associates would love their own personal assistant. And it came into my head, what if we sort of had a personal assistant timeshare, but like not physical? It was be like a virtual timeshare.
Hmm.
That was the idea. And that's why I ended up running with and starting
Hmm.
Equivity with.
Now, this is obviously well before the pandemic, so it wasn't like virtual was all the rage, right? This is early.
Well before. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
2014.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
6 years
Now,
before.
why didn't you consider like, I mean, a lot of lawyers who don't want to, do private practice, they go in-house or something like that. Why didn't you do that?
Um, I think the reason is it's always been important to me to really be engaged with the work. And what I really engaged me, it's not that obviously there are many people who go in house and have very engaging careers.
Yeah.
But what engaged me about the practice of law was the problem solving of litigation. It's just very time intensive, is really the thing.
Mm.
And I really enjoyed the strategy and figuring out how to move a case forward and then getting involved in the tactics of implementing that. It was a giant problem I love solving. And I just didn't see that having an opportunity that was equivalent to that in house.
Mm.
And so I basically substituted the problem solving challenges of a legal practice with the problem solving challenges of starting and scaling up a business.
Yeah. Well, how did you start? I mean, did you have to raise money? Was it something you could just do in your own kitchen table? I mean, how do you start this company?
It's much more of the kitchen table thing. I mean, it's boots, I was able to bootstrap the business and make it work. It started with me and like one virtual assistant
Oh,
and just figuring out how to like grow it into a business and what the demand was like. And that's the thing, you could just kind of go online, create a website, and then see what came in and figure out, what were the best ways, what was the demand. And then once you figured out what was the demand, how do you get more of it? So in short, yeah, it was kind of at my kitchen table
oh.
and just like figuring out through the trial and error how to build a business.
Yeah. Well, what was the hardest thing? I mean, there must have been some, I mean, I'm sure there were many hard things, but what kind of was the hardest thing about getting that business going?
Um, I think a lot of folks find this true, but I think especially lawyer entrepreneurs, it's actually just doing something without trying to plan it ahead of time. The
Hmm.
fact of the matter is with businesses, um, it's both you need to have the right balance of risk and or the right risk appetite. And I think the right way to look at a business is you just have to jump in and be okay failing and like not taking that hard and pivoting from that and learning from the experience. You have to gather that data of like that I was just talking about. What do people want? What works? How do I set up, processes? And you have to constantly be iterating and modifying them. And the only way to do that is just by trying something, letting it fail, and then trying it again.
Hmm.
So in that sense, you can't be, I think the overall strategy needs to be a risk averse strategy. You can't just spend tons of money and be out of money before you know it. You need to be prudent about that. But in terms of like trying stuff, you need to just get out there and to take on that mindset, which is very different than an attorney mindset. I think that was the biggest challenge.
Was success instant or did it take a while to get successful? I mean, how did that tell me how what the growth rate of that business was?
Yeah, I mean, it took a little while to get going, but once I feel like when I was more like 3 years in, we were growing at a rapid rate. And, something like I know in the last 3 years of the company, we more than doubled, revenue. We grew every year. We grew headcount from that one person that I had to over 120 employees and
Oh,
built
wow.
out, you know, we had to build out an HR division and a customer service division and sales and marketing. And so, yeah, it took a while, I think, to get our footing and figure out, what the best way to sell what we had was and what exactly our clients wanted. But
Yeah.
once we did, we were able to leverage that into pretty rapid growth.
So it became ultimately like a staffing company of sorts. I mean, is that how it was best characterized, basically?
It it did. The ironic thing is, and this probably leads to what I'm doing in the next stage of my career, is I had originally seen it as a more tech solution, sort of akin to TaskRabbit. You go onto TaskRabbit, you need somebody to, a handyman to fix some stuff, and so you just get a handyman and you pay him for a couple hours and you're on your way. Um, and in 2014, though, to come up with a system that to come up with a platform to develop a platform to do that and to create both the network of people who would be willing to try this to sustain business on this platform, and then a network of assistants who would be willing to service those people. That would have required much more capital than I required. And I didn't figure that out until I had already embarked on this path.
Mm.
And so that was one of the pivots that I made. I said, this really, given my resources, this is not the right way to go about this. The right thing to do is to turn this into a staffing business. And we were able to emphasize how people would get their own dedicated assistant. And so, and really the value add proposition became, look, it's really hard for smaller businesses to find the help they need. We will take that headache away from you. We will handle that. We have developed expertise in that. And it took us a while to figure out that that's really the value we provide to our clients.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like you achieved a lot of success. 120 employees sounds like a serious organization. You're a CEO, you're an entrepreneur. What made you decide to leave that and join this artificial intelligence company?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is related to what I just told you, which is I had not intended to start a staffing company. I was, from my patent litigation background, I've always been interested in tech. And I thought, I was sort of creating a more technology oriented company, but I ended up creating a people company.
Yeah.
And that was great, but I didn't want that to be the last chapter of my career. And so I just went, and last year in 2023, I sold Equivity, and now I joined a company that I think is doing amazing things, has an amazing product that is really going to transform how attorneys practice law.
And what are you doing at this company? What is your role there?
So my role is mostly in sales and marketing, though I have a little bit of a roving portfolio. It's to develop business and to help get attorneys, to acquaint attorneys with our product, explain to them our value proposition and how we can help them, and then to create a marketing, a marketing funnel around that, and to basically raise awareness and visibility of Scylla.
And is the product mainly for litigators? What's the product? Tell me how the product is used and what is it?
Yeah, sure. So it is an AI empowered workspace for litigators. And basically the idea is creating a platform on which attorneys have the information they need, include the case file and the discovery documents. And because it's all on the same platform, you can then use AI to extract the information that you need from those documents in all sorts of really useful and interesting ways. So it's a comprehensive solution, and also one that leverages, this AI technology, which I think is really transformative for the legal profession.
Is the product already being used, or is it in beta? Tell me the stage of this company.
Yeah. We're out there already. We already have AmLaw, 150 firms utilizing the product, AmLaw 100 firms, 500 plus litigator firms. And they've been really, really excited about the results that they've seen, and how it allows them to find the information they need with unprecedented speed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Do you miss practicing law?
Sometimes, I have a lot of my friends are litigators, and I do love hearing them go into their own like rabbit holes of like the challenges they have on their cases and the outrageous things opposing counsel has done. But so I miss some of it. I don't miss it being an all-encompassing part of my life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you get to work with lawyers now, so maybe that helps a little bit. Well,
Sure.
let's see. So you obviously were a practicing lawyer. You started your own company as an entrepreneur. You've joined this very exciting technology company. Is there other checks or other buckets things you want to accomplish in the future? What else is on your list?
It's really interesting. I'm just, I really, my career has, I think just in the short time we've been talking, it's pretty clear my career has taken twists and turns
Yeah,
that I
definitely.
never would have anticipated. And what I've come to realize is that, you learn as you move forward. And I think that it's really, really hard to plan out for like 3 years from now, let alone 5 or 10.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I've embarked on this new chapter. I'm really looking forward to seeing how law changes in the next 5 years. I think it's going to change dramatically. I think that's really exciting. And, if I decide that there's something else after that, I think I have confidence that it will become apparent, and that I will make the right decisions to embrace
yeah,
whatever that new challenge is.
yeah. Well, Eric, I really appreciate your telling me. It's been a fascinating conversation. I love hearing about lawyers who go on to do interesting things. If you do go on to start something else, please come back and tell me about it.
I absolutely will. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Richard.
This is Richard Hsu and Eric Wall. Thanks.